So I'm standing on the side of Norman Cross Prisoner War Camp, and it would have housed French and Dutch prisoners in particular. Behind me you can just see some of the humps and bumps in the ground which show the remnants of the ditch works that surrounded the camp, but very little survives above surface, as you can imagine, given that most of the buildings were constructed from timber. But there are some survivals, including the agent's house, which is far behind me, which was later clad in brick, so it does survive today and is a quite beautiful building. Just casting an eye across the site and you can see some of the remnants of the ditch work just showing up here as the light falls this afternoon. And dotted across the sites there are rabbit warrens, and there's lots of scatter outside those, and in fact the first one I came across has a nice little piece of meerschaum pipe. Maybe one of the soldiers who guarded, or perhaps belonging to one of the 6,500 prisoners who are housed here at any given time. So I'm just making my way along the perimeter of the camp. It was split into quadrants where the men and their wives and children would have been imprisoned. But it wasn't too bad. They were well fed, they were well looked after, so that they could be, if you're an officer, paroled, or actually a prisoner, be exchanged. And there was a great effort by the government at the time, the site being operated and run by the Admiralty, whilst the soldiers provided the security. And those sailors, as well as soldiers captured from across Europe, would find themselves eventually back home if they survived. And the care was good. There was a hospital on site, there was a school, and behind me was also a cemetery, and we believe that it contains the mortal remains of almost 1,700 men and women, presumably, who did pass away here from various natural causes. Most who were captured would have entered the prison in their 30s, and given that the life expectancy at the time was perhaps, if you were lucky, into your 40s, many would have died of natural causes. The site, though, although large and twice the size of neighbouring Peterborough in terms of population, Peterborough only had 3,000 at the time. There were close to 6,000 or 7,000 living here, if you consider the support staff as well as the people that flocked to trade and sell. It was regarded and described often as almost like a country fair if you came here, because the French and the Dutch would use their skills as they sat in the camp to manufacture gifts, boxes out of wood. They used bone, made model ships, and a number of these survive today and are really quite beautiful. But by 1816, the camp had effectively run its course. The buildings, which were timber, were sold off, some surviving through until the early 20th century in Peterborough, for example. Relatively undisturbed today. The intent is for the site to be preserved, and that the unconsecrated ground where those who died here be reconsecrated, and a memorial set up to mark that place. There is a memorial that stands on the road to the many people who were imprisoned here close to 200 years ago. But today the site remains pristine and it is protected. It now has a charter, it is a charity, and as a group we're very pleased to be able to support any and all activities to preserve the site and tell its story today.